would like to ask a question, Ms. Alar.
Yes.
What does the three waves of literacy mean in Africa?
So basically, the three waves of literacy in Africa represents the three different eras which serves as the pinnacle of the intellectual revolution of Africans brought or being influenced by foreign countries.
I see. Thank you for the clarification.
So now let me introduce to you the famous African writers. First is Leopold Sédar Senghor. So he is a poet, a statesman, who was a co-founder of the Negritude movement in African art and literature. He went to Paris on a scholarship and later taught in the French school system. So Mr. Senghor is one of the co-founder of the Negritude or the movements of the African people that are being based in Europe. So his works include first, Songs of Shadows. Next, Black Offerings. Third, Major Elegies. And lastly, Political Work. Next famous African writer is Mr. Okot Pibitek. He was born in Uganda during the British domination. He attended English-speaking school but never lost touch with the tradition of African values and used his talents to pursue his interests in both African and Western cultures. So despite being raised and despite attending English-speaking school, still Mr. Vitek showcased a true African value which is to be instilled in your roots, and he has used his talents to pursue his interests in both African and Western culture. So among his works are first, Song of Lawino, Song of Akal, next, African Religions and Western Scholarships, next, Religion of the Central Lu, and next, Horn of My Love from year 1930 to 1982. So as you can observe, so despite being fascinated by the Western traditions, still Mr. Vitek included the African values, traditions, and beliefs in his works. Next famous African writer is Mr. Wole Soyinka. So he is a Nigerian playwright, poet, novelist, and a critic who was the first Black African to awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in Literature in 1986. So he wrote a modern West Africa in a satirical style and with tragic senses of the obstacle to human progress. So Mr. Soyinka is the first recipient or the first African recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize in Literature. So among his works are Under the Plays, so he also do plays which are A Dance of the Forest. Next is The Lion and the Jewel. So he also wrote novels such as The Interpreters and The Season of Anime. Next famous African literature writer is Mr. Chinua Achebe. So he is a prominent Igbo novelist, acclaimed for his unsentimental depictions of the social and psychological disorientation accompanying the imposition of Western costumes and values upon traditional African society. So his works include Things Fall Apart, Arrow of God, No Longer at Ease, A Man of the People, and Hills of Savannah in the year 1930. Another famous writer, African writer, is Miss Barbara Kimeni. So she wrote 12 books on children's stories known as the Moses series, which are now a standard reading fare of African school children. So as you have observed, Miss Kimenya is the first woman who is being acknowledged as a famous writer. So she wrote 12 stories for children. So it is now known as the standard reading fare for African school children. So among her works are Calasanda Revisited, The Smugglers, and The Money Game in the year 1940. Another woman, famous writer in Africa is Bessie Head. She described the contradictions and shortcomings of pre- and post-colonial African society in morally didactic novels and stories. So her works includes When Rain Clouds Gather, A Question of Power, The Collector of Treasures, and Thoreau, which is for the year 1937 to the year 1986. Next famous African writer is Ousmane Sembène. So he is a writer and a filmmaker from Senegal. So his works reveal an intense commitment to political and social change. His works includes My Country, My Beautiful People, God's Bits of Wood, and The Storm in the year 1923. Wait lang.